Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, with you for another episode of the Steelers Post-Game Podcast. And the Steelers lose again. They have lost 3 in a row now. This third game might be the worst of all 3. A 27-17 loss to the Cincinnati Bengals on primetime Monday Night Football. That's right, back-to-back primetime losses for the Steelers. That's very rare in the Mike Tomlin era. And yet here we are, the Pittsburgh Steelers fail to hit 20 points again. They turned the ball over 3 times in the first quarter. Ben Roethlisberger looks absolutely inadequate to be a quarterback in the National Football League in the first half. There is a lot to digest from this, but I want to make something very clear before I bring on my co-host. We are not experts here, okay? None of us claim to be. None of us ever suggested that we were. We are fans, and we are as pissed off as you are that are watching or listening to us right now. So we all have frustration. We're all looking for answers. That's what we try to do here as we break down the game. And with that being said, let's bring on Bryan Anthony Davis, our podcast producer. What's going on, Bryan?
Why don't I drink?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a great question.
I mean, I might start. Horrendous. I mean, it's not going to be hard. I mean, I could tell you my grades now, but I don't want to ruin the show. But they're not A's. Let's just put it that way. Horrible effort. No urgency. I'm upset. In fact, I'm angry. Plus, this destroyed a little girl, an 11-year-old girl in my house. And it's, I'll tell you about that really fast, just because it might give us some levity, because the entire game, she was scared to death the Steelers were going to lose because her fish was going to die. Because last week, the Steelers lost to Buffalo. The next day, her fish died. The other fish isn't looking that good. So she's thinking the beta is going to die now because they lost. She was inconsolable. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, this is watching her and trying to get her through this and trying to watch this crap on my television. This is torture.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave Schofield, co-editor of Behind the Steel Curtain. What's up, Dave?
Let's go to bed. No, I got a message from my sister partway through the game, and she's like, "This is why I'm glad I'm not like you, and I don't have to work by watching the Steelers. I can go to bed and not have to watch this anymore." And I was quite envious because, yeah. Moving on.
It's one of those games where you wanted to just turn it off. But I want to start this podcast off not railing on about the Steelers. I want to send, and I'll speak for Dave and Bryan here, I want to send our personal regards to the family of Kevin Greene, whether it's, his wife, his children. Such a horrible news story to have to write today, this afternoon, evening, when news broke that at 58 years old, Kevin Greene, that's right, the Hall of Famer, didn't play long in Pittsburgh, but he was a Steelers legend in the Hall of Honor, was a part of that unbelievable Blitzburgh defense in the 90s. I think I speak for everyone when we say that, our thoughts and prayers are with the Greene family. It kind of, that news really hit me in the nuts. We'll put it that way. And I didn't even really feel like watching football that much because I just kept on thinking, I was like, man, this is just awful. It's awful. You hate when that stuff happens, but I know we're going to talk about this game, but I wanted to get that out of the way first. So, guys, anything to add about that with Kevin Greene passing? Bryan?
Just, you said it. I mean, only here for 3 years as a Steeler, but one of the most popular Steelers of all time. I was crushed.
Dave?
Yeah, that was a hard one. That was difficult. Yeah, and you're exactly right, Jeff. It was kind of tough to, even as a fan, to get in the mood to watch a game. And then we didn't really have a game to watch anyway. So
no, absolutely not. And so before we get diving into the numbers here, let's get some super chats. You got to segue into the game at some point. So Steel Dog 88 gives us $2 and says no takeaways on defense. The only bright spot was Benny Snell. We'll talk about Benny Snell. I thought he had a good game. He represented himself well. We'll put it that way. Isaac Aguilera gave us $2. He said one more thing. Yeah, I missed one. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Let me try to find that. Here we go. $5 from Isaac. He says, when are the Steelers going to stop throwing it short? Why does Ben still get days off? It's embarrassing what's happening. Hard to disagree. And then he gives us $2 more and says, one more thing, stop dancing Juju. You're not going to find many people to disagree with you on that regard coming up. I guarantee that for sure. Kyle Smith gives us $5. He says, who was worse, the tackles or the refs? Chooks and Al were abysmal. Ben almost sacked on 4th down. Refs missed several calls, including a DPI on Chase Claypool. Both were pretty bad, I would say. Sean the Don gives us $5. My optimism is very small now. One of the worst games/halves I've ever seen. Absolutely. Yeah, that sounds about right. Mark Davison, podcaster here behind the steel curtain, gives us $5 dingo dollars. He says, losing to the Bengals, that's not just cricket. Poor form as the Steelers have given themselves a sticky wicket.
I think we needed that.
Yes.
A for creativity.
And you know what? Sure. If you listen to his podcast, he hates Cincinnati more than he hates the Ravens, the Browns, the Patriots. He hates Cincy.
Yeah, X Eddie B gives us 5. Let's see here. These are Canuck Bucks. Ben didn't get his elbow fixed to not throw it more than 5 yards. And there's a lot of questions about Ben Roethlisberger swirling around. A lot of people are saying that he's hurt. Mike Tomlin was asked about this. Point blank, is he hurt? In the post-game press conference, he said no. And are you concerned about his arm strength in the second half of the season? And he said no. So whether you leave Tomlin or not, I don't know, but he was asked about that, so take that for what it's worth. Wilson, PAVA gives us, Pava maybe, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, $5. He said Chooks' penalty was good. Nice to see his fire. Ben didn't. Chase was a bright spot alongside Snell. Start him going forward. As always, hashtag fire Fietner. I don't know. Benny Snell deserves more time, I think. Absolutely. I mean, he did. I think so. Let's see here. I'm trying to think how to say this. I don't know. Any guesses there, Dave?
Exile Dem Path.
Yeah, there you go. Gave us $10. He said the Steelers' offense was offensive. I think that's a good way of describing it. And we will take the time now to talk about the Steelers' offense. Like we always do, we give out grades. And we start with none other than Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger goes 20 for 38, throws for only 170 yards. He averaged 4.5. He had 1 touchdown, 1 interception, was only sacked 1 time, but he was pressured a lot. 62.4 rating. The fumble, I don't know if does that go on his record, Dave, or does that go to Pouncey on the snap?
I'm pretty sure it went the last I saw. It was on Roethlisberger because they counted it as a rushing attempt.
It should go against Roethlisberger because that was not a bad snap. There was nothing wrong with it. He just mishandled the football. Guys, we're grading Ben Roethlisberger. I think we all know which way we're going, but we'll start with Bryan. Go ahead. Fire away.
Benjamin Francis Roethlisberger, because Francis starts with F. Enough said. I'm not going to elaborate. You know why.
Dave, agree, disagree?
I'd throw a minus on there. I mean, it was just, that first half was, I don't know that we as Steelers fans had to witness that bad of a first half, even of a half of football. Did we even was it even that bad in 2019? I know it wasn't good, but was it that bad? That was bad. I mean, I had originally tweeted out that Ben Roethlisberger had 29 passing yards. That's because the stats I was looking at hadn't properly adjusted Juju's fumble to take away yardage on that. He had 19 passing yards in the first half, and Benny Snell had 30 rushing yards. So that was one comparison. It was, and it wasn't just that the numbers weren't there. There was no confidence in anything. Passes were nowhere close. He's making a decision to throw balls to guys that have multiple guys on him. You know, everyone's breaking in that direction because is he Is there something that the defense is seeing on the field by watching Roethlisberger that we can't even see on TV, that he is completely telegraphing and saying exactly who he's throwing to? Because they were just swarming to him, and there'd be other guys wide open, and it didn't matter.
I'm going to give him an F. I mean, there's no other grade really to give him. Someone put in the live chat, I give him an R for retire. You're searching for answers. You want something tangible. You want something that you can say, like Dave was just mentioning. You want something that you can say, this is what's wrong. This is it. Even if it was an injury, even if it was his elbow is not back to where it was, even if it was any of those things, it would at least be something. By all reports that we're hearing, it's none of that. And you're asking yourself, what is going on? No one's getting any answers. I think that the fact that he still gets those days off early in the week, it rubs people the wrong way. But nonetheless, it's an F. Go ahead, Dave.
I think they're full of it. I think that seeing Ben's performance tonight, I'm starting to – this is just a gut feeling. I'm going like bad. I'm going with a gut feeling. It feels like there is something wrong with Ben. It feels like there is something wrong because they had the extra day off. You had the extra day to work on the offense, and you chose to rest him. Why? Because that tells you that there's something else outside of the football, scheming preparation part that is more important to get right, in my opinion.
Do you know what it looks like to me? It just looks like his arm is fatigued. I mean, it looks like a guy that hasn't he didn't throw a pass. What did he throw? Maybe, 40 passes in 2019 before he had surgery against Seattle in week 2. And his arm is probably just wearing down. I mean, you can never really prepare yourself in training to go out there and throw for 50 plus times in consecutive weeks, all these weeks in a row. And so, yeah, we always joke about I didn't have my arm surgically repaired to hand the ball off, but my goodness, maybe his arm wasn't ready to throw the ball that many times. It just looks – you don't see a lot of zip on his passes. You can see the deep ball wobbling. He doesn't have the arm strength. I don't know. We have a lot of super chats to get through. I want to get to all of them before we pass them up. Jeremy Smith gives us $4.99. His best case scenario outside of a Super Bowl miracle, losing the wild card and pray that Kyle Trask falls far enough. If you listen to my Let's Ride, I am not one to talk about college football right now at all. Just based on the fact that I don't know enough about these players to really talk about it. But nonetheless, it's not good. Dave, do you have any of those other super chats there? I'm
trying to move through. There seems like there's a bunch. I went back to make sure.
I had one saved up, and then I can't get the other ones. The $10 one here from Mrs. and Mr. Steelers. That game felt worse than the loss to Tebow. Well, the loss to Tebow was in the playoffs, and that was a $10 tip. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
There it was.
Okay. I just can't seem to get any of the other ones, so I apologize. Okay, thank you. If you get them, throw them up there. But, Bryan, I want to ask you about that. You just think it's fatigue in the arm? You think it's something more structural? What are your thoughts?
You know what? I think there's something going on. The decisions aren't good. It just seems to me like when they were trying to come back in that game, there's plenty of time left on the clock. Then there wasn't because they were just lackadaisical getting the ball, and that was led by Ben. I don't know whether there's an arrogance thinking, oh, yeah, we got this, but no, you don't. And this is when we're going to start. I haven't heard his press conference, but this is where we start getting if I don't have it and, hey, I'm going to be the first one to own it that I don't have it. No, that's not good enough anymore. You're a Hall of Fame quarterback. You just went 60,000 plus. You've got to decide. You've got to decide, and it can't be $41 million. You've got to decide whether you are in it or you're just collecting a paycheck. And tonight, it felt like he was collecting a paycheck. Last week, it felt like he was collecting a paycheck. I just don't feel the urgency with him, and I just don't feel that. I think the fire's gone. And I love the guy.
Yeah, no, I mean, the fire was there. I mean, you saw it in the second half when they started turning around, but it's at the beginning of the games. I mean, the beginning of the games have been awful. I mean, I can't even tell you the last time they had a first down on the opening drive of a game.
It's been 4 straight games where they haven't.
That's unbelievable. Dave, do you have any of the super chats? Did you find them on your phone?
I can't bring them up on the screen because there's a problem right now with StreamYard where it's just jumping all over the place and they're gone. But I can read some of them. We got $5 from Michelle Powers, but we didn't get anything in there. So if I see anything else for you, I'll try to bring it up. $5 from Kyle Anderson. Some bright spots to start the second half. Got ourselves in too deep of a hole in the first half. I still believe we can turn this around. # here we go. What do you think of that?
You still hope that your offense can score more than 17 points against the 2-10-1 Bengals. That's what I'm going to say. Yeah. We're going to talk about the rest of the offense, but yeah, you dig yourself a hole. But at any point, did anyone on this panel think, yeah, they're going to come back and score 24 points in the second half? I sure as heck didn't. Brian, did you?
I did.
Really?
I actually thought
after watching the first half, you thought they were going to do a complete 180 and they were going to just turn it on.
Yep. You know, I really thought that if they came out urgent to start the second half, which they kind of did when they got the ball back for that first drive, and I'm like, okay, they've got this. And then there was no urgency after that.
Yeah.
Then, when on that the play calling wasn't that great when they had to settle for a field goal, they could have really gotten back in that game right there.
No, you're right. Let's get to a couple here. Takaharu, $5. Let's go, Randy Feetner, house hunting boys. I'm sure you're not alone in that regard. We'll put it that way. Let's see. I'm trying to go. Got it. Freaking Geeks Media gives us $5. He said Ben gets the ball out so quick because if he holds it longer than a couple of seconds, he's getting sacked or hit as he throws. The line is old and slow. Oh gosh, it's just one of the many issues right now with this football team. And then Grayson Brown gives us $20. Says, what happened to the Steelers? It seems like they haven't been the same since the botched Thanksgiving Day game. It's becoming laughable at this point. Sad because I think we are wasting this defense. I don't know, guys. I give up. There's moments. I know to say there's moments in time where you just want to give one of these emojis. Yep. I don't know. Matt Chu, who's given us a lot of money over the last few weeks, we appreciate it. He gives us $11.03. His RIP to the great Joe. I think he meant Kevin Greene. That's okay. I don't think Joe Greene passed away.
Yeah, please don't scare me.
I can't handle anything.
That would be a little much for me right now. He said the O-line's not good anymore. Quick fix with short passes. Can't run block 4 running backs. Wide receiver talent is there. It comes down to the quarterback and O-line. Oh, yeah, the play calling. Mrs. and Mr. Steelers gives us $10. This is a completely different team than we saw earlier this season. It's absolutely right. 100% correct. This doesn't even look like a shell of the team we saw earlier. And then lastly, Todd Williams gives us $4.99. If we see that question, throw that up there. And Steel Dog gives us $2. Did it also feel like we got out coached? I don't know if I would say that we felt like we got out coached based on the fact that the Steelers turned the ball over 3 times in the first quarter.
Yeah,
that's not coaching.
First half.
Well, I'm pretty sure that they weren't all in the first quarter. At least 2 in the first quarter. There were at least 2 in the first quarter.
The second one was at the end of the first quarter because they scored. They had
the ball
after that.
You're
and
right.
Scored that one.
The third one
was in
the third one was in the second quarter because they had 14 points off of those last 2 turnovers. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not going to go as far as saying that they were outcoached because, like I said, that's not on Tomlin. It's not on Feetner. And that's definitely a common thread and narrative here. But I don't know. There's a lot of question marks surrounding this team. I want to make that very clear. There's a lot of flaws, and we're going to try to get through. We got to get through it. So let's get through the running backs. The Steelers running the ball. Hey, this is probably their best outing they've had in a really long time. Benny Snell, 18 carries for 84 yards, 4.7 yard average, did have a touchdown and a long run of 29 yards. Anthony McFarland, 1 carry for 5. After that, it was Samuels, 1 for 4. Total 23 carries for 86 yards, 3.7 average. Guys, Benny Snell, he actually didn't do bad, I didn't think. Bryan, what grade do you give the running backs, i.e. Benny Snell football?
So let's go ahead and give him a B. I got to have a bright spot here. He looked pretty good. I have no problem with his play. I'm not going to give him an A. There was that didn't he turn the ball over on downs on fourth down, or did he end up getting that, or was that a third down play where he
didn't get it on third?
Okay. He didn't get it on third. He got it on fourth.
Okay, so I mean, or there was a situation where they had a punt and he didn't get it, but I thought he had a pretty good game. He was a bright spot on a dark night.
All right, Dave, what grade do you give the running game?
I'll go a. I was going to go a B or a B minus. I'll say B, and I think the running game could have been even better if the Steelers weren't in such a big hole. I think Benny Snell was running in a way that he was running. It was the first time you saw a running back for the Steelers in a long time running in a what you call a closeout style, where you could take the ball and close out the game. The problem is the Steelers weren't in that position.
No.
So that was one of the biggest issues. So that, I mean, especially if you compare it to how it had been going, but still, that's like the best grade by far.
I'm going to give him a B. I thought he played well. I mean, for the opportunities he was given, he made something out of nothing on a few occasions, which is a necessity for Steelers running backs, but running behind this offensive line is not easy. Vernon Woody gives us 4.99. He says the offensive line is not good, so Ben does not have to set up for the deep throw. I do want to ask you guys a question about the offensive line because we're going to grade them in terms of run blocking once we get through this. Kyle Smith gives us $5. That Juju's dance doesn't lead to L's. That's just dumb media and social media hullabaloo. A 15-second video affects a 53-man team. Get off my lawn.
Can I say something about that though?
Sure.
I get it. But did you see those defenders flying when they saw number 19 ready to knock him out? So yeah, it does matter.
Von Bell was quoted, the guy that took his head off. He was quoted by saying, "We're going to go out and have to stop him from dancing." They recognize that he's going to do it, and when he's bold enough to say, "I'm not going to stop," then you're going to deal with the repercussions. Do I think he's going to do it again? I think if Tomlin's smart, he says, "Look, even if we're playing in Heinz Field, Juju, just knock it off. Like that, we just don't need it. It's one of those distractions. It's becoming a distraction." Steph gives us $6.99. Well, those are Canuck bucks. These last four prolonged dread games make me long for the heart attack endings of week 7 through 9. Haven't lost hope yet. Go Steelers. Well, I'm glad there's at least someone that hasn't lost hope because I feel like a lot of fans the fan confidence was at 24%, guys, coming into this game. It's going to be down in the single digits probably before next week. Mrs. and Mr. Steeler gives us $5 more. Was anyone else trying to figure out if Finley was smiling or grimacing the entire game? Both. I felt he was smiling, and I wanted to knock that right off his face. Vice Prez gives us $5. He said, any reason the Steelers O-line pass blocks on both passing and running plays? At least we can have a little sense of humor here. Anyone know? This was the question I want to get to. Does anyone know what in the world the Steelers were doing at left guard tonight? Anyone? It almost felt
rotating.
Like that. What? To me, that's a fireable offense. I'm sorry. You have J.C. Hassenauer, who's a center. Okay, he's a trained center. Doesn't mean he can't play guard, but he's a trained center. Derwin Gray at least has some experience playing guard. If you think J.C. Hassenauer is the answer there, then why would you just put him in and leave him in and let him get into a rhythm? Instead, that they're throwing Derwin Gray out there at times. He's playing okay. He's opening up some holes. I feel like they're running the ball well when Derwin Gray is in there. And all of a sudden, do you see J.C. Hassenauer back in there? Dave, try to explain this to me in elementary terms, please.
I had no problem with it because what you're trying to do sometimes, I mean, it's crazy because you say that sometimes there's a series where you'll play a different running back and you're just doing something and we don't think twice of it. But we've got stuck in our minds that the offensive line has to be the same the entire game and cohesiveness and blah, blah, blah. I think they were trying to figure out what was going to work best. And Jeffrey Benedict has said it so many times. Alejandro Villanueva is not an easy player to play next to based on his style. And we saw that tonight. That Matt Filer means a lot more to this offensive line. People are saying about Filer terrible, blah, blah, blah. I don't think so. That is a cohesiveness issue when it comes to Filer has figured out how to play better next to Alejandro Villanueva. Ramon Foster knew how to, I don't know if it was Villanueva learned by playing next to Foster or Foster was able to do it. I don't know what the deal is, but it's just something kind of interesting going on there. I don't have a problem trying to figure out who's going to actually get the job done. I was just surprised they didn't just find one and go with it then in the second half. That's what would still kind of surprised me. Maybe they were just the infamous, we didn't want to, we might need these guys down the road. I'd try to limit their snaps, but to me, that's just a sound bit. That's not really what they were doing.
That's malarkey.
So, I don't know why, but I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. Bryan, any thoughts on the left guard situation? I just found it strange. I've never heard of an offensive line being in flux in the middle of a game, but Dave's making it sound like it's normal. Bryan, what are your thoughts?
In everything Dave said, it's hard to go against. I just like continuity. I think for a young guy with not a lot of experience, you stick with one. And if you're going to replace him, you replace him for the game. And, coming in cold, it reminded me of back in 1992 when the Denver Broncos would bring in a different quarterback every other series. They rotated two every series, and it worked horribly back then. And I just don't think that, it's not the same, but you kind of need continuity there.
Yeah. Michelle Powers gives us $10, says, keep the faith. Things will get better. Watch and see. Well, I hope
it's
you're
hard
right.
to get worse from this point on. You're not going to be every team the Steelers have left to play are double-digit win teams. They will not face another team that does not have double-digit wins. So they can't get worse than losing to a team that came into the game with only 2.5 wins. If you think about it.
I know. Connor Norris 18 gives us 99 cents. Thank you very much for the tip. Appreciate it. All right, let's get to the receivers, shall we? Let's see here. Deontay Johnson, 8 receptions, 59 yards, along with 23, targeted 13 times. Chase Claypool, 3 catches for 54 yards. 37 was along that came on that wide receiver screen on third down. I thought he was taking that to the house, by the way. Shocked he got tripped up. Benny Snell, actually the third leading receiver with 3 catches for 23 yards. Juju Smith-Schuster, 3 catches for 15. Jalen Samuels, 1 for 12. Here's a note to remember. James Washington, 0 catches, 0 yards on 3 targets. Guys, grade the receivers. Bryan, go ahead.
Wow, this is tough. I really can't give them a good grade just because they did nothing spectacular. Claypool was probably the best of the bunch. I know that we didn't have the drops from Deontay Johnson, and he played like a warrior out there, but I'm not giving him anything better than a C tonight because they didn't do anything great. They just were average.
Yeah. Steel Dog gives us $2. Said love Villanueva, but he wasn't getting any help. That's true. He wasn't. He was on an island. And Carl Lawson, he does one thing well, and that's rush the passer. Dave, what are your thoughts on the receivers?
Didn't see crazy drops. Saw a lot of bad throws their direction. I don't think they were the problem. So that's why I'm going to say C+. That's there. We'll go with that.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah. I was going to say a C, just middle of the road, because when your quarterback's not throwing you good passes, it's tough to make those catches. Didn't see the drops. So that was a good thing. I thought Deontay Johnson had a good bounce back. So I don't know. We shall see. Let's grade the offensive line in general, and as well more on the pass blocking, because I think we talked about them in run blocking a little bit. How would you grade the offensive line in general, though, this week? Bryan, we'll start with you.
I'm giving them a D, and I'm usually giving them a higher grade because of their pass blocking. Somebody said in the live chat that Al made Lawson his dad in this game, and Carl Lawson was all over Ben. There was, this was probably the most pressure that Ben has really felt in a while, it seemed. And he has faced some really good defenses recently, but Cincinnati was all over him.
Dave, offensive line, what's your grade?
Yeah, I think Bryan's pretty good there with saying a D, because there were a few times where Ben held the ball passing because he was able to, but there was times where he had to throw it before he wanted to because he had to. And yes, the Steelers ran the ball a little bit better, but there was times when they needed to run the ball. They couldn't. That one third down play, they just blew who they were blocking, and they just let the linebacker come right through and blow up Benny Snell for a 2-yard loss. They just had guys that they didn't block. And I got frustrated early on because, once again, I said Benny Snell runs for 3 yards, but there's 3 offensive linemen standing and watching him do it. That I didn't see it as much in the second half. I will say that, but I noticed it in the first half. So it's just they're missing something right now, and I don't know if it's something that they can get back.
Yeah, that's true. It's bad. Offensive line, I'm gonna give him a D, just because like Bryan has said in the past, you would always kind of bump up the grade because of the pass blocking, but I didn't even think that was up to snuff on Monday night. So in week 15, so take that for what it's worth. Bernardo, he gives us $20, but I don't know what that is. He's
at this R. I was thinking it was Russia, but it's not.
No, I don't know. This team is wasting receivers. What's the point of having great drafts if they're running the exact same concepts every single play? That's awful. My grandma would call a better game on offense about $6 from Brazil. Nice. Thank you very
Brazilians. Much. Instead of millions, Brazilians.
Oh, goodness gracious. Lord help us all. All right. So the Steelers offense was absolutely dreadful. Before we take a break, I want to get your guys' thoughts on the play calling, the overall offense before we kind of move on to the defense in part 2. Bryan, we'll start with you. Thoughts on the offense in general? You can talk about everything from Randy Fichtner to Ben Roethlisberger. What are your thoughts?
We were talking about Ben Roethlisberger earlier, and one of the things that you said is, Ben showed some fire when he came back in the second half, but that's the problem. You wasted an entire 30 minutes of football. That was probably, and everybody was saying it on social media, on my texts, on our Slack channel, that that was probably one of the worst first halves of football that they've seen from Pittsburgh and watching them. And I've got to agree, because that was just a dreadful showing. And once again, there was no fire coming out in that. Sure, you can have fire when you're down 17-0, but when you have no fire to start the game, other quarterbacks have fire, other offenses have fire, but the play calling was nothing that would make you go, we've got to adjust for that. No, it's like, great, we planned for this. That's it. So the play calling, bad. Just it's the same thing. No adjustments seem to have been made.
Dave, what are your thoughts?
There was times when I actually thought the Steelers, when running the ball, ran it not as quite as predictable as they have in the past.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what really helped them with the running game as well, and it helped to get Snell going. But at the same time, it's hard to say if Bryan saying about the play calling, it's hard to say if it was that bad when your execution is just that terrible. And I've never seen a game like that from Ben Roethlisberger, where he just wasn't executing Hardly at all. I mean, it's one thing for Ben to have a bad throw here and there, but this game was like, wow, Ben had a good throw. That's what you were taking note of.
Yeah.
That's not what you were getting otherwise. So, I mean, this was supposed to be the game that some people say it doesn't matter what the score is. It's not, I'm still not going to feel better because it's just the Bengals. And I thought to myself, well, if they don't win it, we're going to feel a whole lot worse. And here we sit.
Here we are. I look at play calling from a situational standpoint. Like, so for instance, the Steelers in the second half, I thought they made adjustments, that they were definitely giving some new looks, some new wrinkles, and the Bengals were not able to really adjust. They had only forced, I think, one punt in the second half up until that very last series. And then they come out and with the game essentially on the line, and they're chucking it deep, like they're throwing Hail Marys at the end of a game. I understand that should have probably been defensive pass interference on Chase Claypool down the left sideline. But the play calling, everything that they had success with so far, they completely abandoned. It just makes you scratch your head and say, what in the world's going on? I do not know. But you know what? I do know that we'll be right back. If you're listening on the audio side, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, we're not going anywhere. But if you're listening on audio, all you got to do is go hop over to part 2. You'll get us talk all about the defense. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Steelers Post-Game Podcast. I'm Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, joined by fellow co-editor Dave Schofield and podcast producer Bryan Anthony Davis. The Steelers lose the third straight game, 27-17, to the Cincinnati Bengals on Monday Night Football. We have some super chats to get to before we get started talking about this defense. Grayson Brown gives us $10. If this hurts, it makes me wish we had a losing season. I know it sounds asinine, but what's the point of these winning seasons when they keep looking like duds? Yes, I think it's over. RIP 2015 to 2020. Thank you, Grayson, for the tip. Appreciate it. OCamZoX gives us $4.99. He says Ben's arm. Occam's Ox, whatever. Ben's arm might be shot, but his reads and decisions have been just as bad. He looks indifferent and at times lazy. That's about as damning as it gets, but I can't disagree with it. I can't disagree at all. Matthew Baldonado gives us $5. I don't see a question there, Dave. If you see it, let me know.
Okay.
Let's see here. I know there's some others. Got that one. Okay, here we go. That's the wrong one. Amateur hour here on the post-game show.
I'll be honest with you. The live chat on our end is not working right. It really isn't.
No, it's fine. Adrian, I guess we'll say $4.99 says Cam H has the angriest at the end because he already paid for the King of the North t-shirts. Cam Hayward. Oh, Cam Hayward. Oh, goodness. This defense. Let's talk about this defense, shall we? We always typically break this down in run defense, the secondary, the pass rush. Let's start with the pass rush. Ryan Finley was sacked 2 times. And boy, did he make the Steelers look foolish on more than one occasion with these RPOs. I mean, Ryan Finley. This is not Cam Newton. This is not Lamar Jackson. This is not Robert Griffin III even. This is Ryan Finley. Ryan freaking Finley. He rushes for 10 carries for 47 yards and a touchdown, a 23-yard touchdown run. The sacks were, let me see, they have TJ Watt with 1, Stephon Tuitt with 1, quarterback hits 6. Guys, grade the Steelers pass rush. Bryan, we'll start with you.
Wow. C. And, I like 2 sacks. That's great. But we were making predictions of like 7 sacks. And even though when we always predict a lot of sacks, that they don't usually happen. And we know that. And we actually threw that disclaimer out there. But, it's just one of those things that they kind of let him off the hook because they were going crazy after him. If they would have just abandoned playing safe and just like went completely after him. And I might be crazy on this. I just thought they could have crushed this guy's soul and they didn't. And he had all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, I can do this. And boom, He became a running quarterback on them, and you did not expect that. Yet a guy like Highsmith that was running right past him, he's got some he has potential to be something great, but I got to tell you, he's running past people. They just did not look good. They missed Bud Dupree.
Yeah. Dave Schofield, go ahead.
He had 13 attempts.
That's the thing. That's what I keep.
It's really hard to get a big pass rush going when you sack him twice and he has 13 attempts because they were not throwing the ball. So to me, that's almost like an incomplete. It's like, what can you really do when you have to focus so much on the run and you can't really do much with the pass rush because of that?
I mean, I look at the pass rush. I mean, like you said, they had a recipe for success, and that was run the football well enough that you don't have to rely on Finley to make the throws necessary to win. They got turnovers, and they did run the ball. And so that definitely hindered the pass rush. Let's get to some super chats here. Ben gives us $5. Let's face reality. Ben's not built for a modern NFL in general, and the fact that he has been playing poorly should be the nail in the coffin. I'm trying not to jump to like these crazy conclusions. I understand why some people are. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I've been waiting for you.
If you made a mistake and you hit the wrong numbers, we always say this when we get big. I guess that's I
Hitman.
He gives us $99.99. This offense not changing the game. Game plan is troubling. 3 and outs that are embarrassing. R.I.P. Steelers legend Kevin Greene, the BTSC crew. Jeff, may the force be with you. This is the way.
That is a Star Wars reference.
I know that. I'm not an idiot.
So is this the way? This is the way is also a Star Wars reference.
Explain it to you guys. Merry Christmas.
New Mandalorian show.
Merry Christmas, fellas, and enjoy. Thank you very much.
Hey, if he's going to pay $99.99, I'm going to
explain it. Explain it all you want. I mean, I guess. Honestly, I'd rather listen to you all try to explain Star Wars than talk about this freaking football team. So
that's how frustrating it is right now.
Yeah.
Wow, $99.99. Thank you so much, Aya Hitman. I feel like we're a telethon. Bing, bing, new record.
That's a new record. Yeah, we've never had it. It was a $50 tip was the highest that we had so far. Now we $99.99. Double Brett Diesel.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Mrs. and Mr. Steelers gives us $10. Our defensive performance tonight is what happens when a defense carries a team for 6+ weeks. You know, the one thing I don't want to hear really, and maybe it's just me and maybe it's kind of insensitive, is I don't want to hear that the defense was gassed in the second half, when in the second half the Steelers offense was possessing the ball. They're coming in off a halftime. They had a chance to get their breath. I get that it's a game that is going to be it's physically taxing, but I'm not saying all this stuff about the defense is just gassed. Well, yeah, they're going to be tired naturally, but I'm not saying that this was all on the offense, because the defense had issues. Let's talk about their run defense. The Cincinnati Bengals run for 152 yards as a team. Giovanni Bernard, 25 carries for 83. I talked about Finley's 47 on 10 carries. Perrine, I don't know how to say that, 4 for 14. Perrine, and then Trayvon Williams, 2 for 8. Guys, man, 152 yards. How do you grade the Steelers' rush defense on this night? Brian, start with you.
The only reason I'm not giving them an F is because in the first half, 3 turnovers led to a whole bunch of points. However, I'm still giving them a D. In fact, I'll give them a D. And the reason being is that's what kept them in the game. You did not give them a reason to have to pass the ball. And that's it. When you weren't stopping that run game, that means we don't have to pass. So, I was getting on the pass rush earlier. And when Dave said, 13 times, I stopped and thought, I'm like, yeah, there's no reason to have to go back to pass when you can't stop a run.
Dave, grade the run defense.
It's already gone, and I can't find it again. But someone put it in there. Is it true that the Bengals did not throw a pass in the fourth quarter?
I'm trying to think
that does not
about
surprise
that.
me. I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm not. I wouldn't be shocked if it was. But they ran the ball 41 times. 41 times. I mean, that was going to be their plan no matter what, that they were going to try to run the ball. And the Steelers offense, by not doing anything at all in the first half, let them keep doing what they wanted to do. When you turn the ball over, you're giving up the points, putting your defense in such a bad spot in the first half, and you're doing absolutely nothing offensively. You are allowing the other team to dictate what's happening in the game. And that's what's going on with the Steelers. It used to be they dictated what's going on in the game. And that's what's killing them. The run defense, I mean, there was times they were trying to run the ball to start the second half, and the Steelers, cost 2 straight 3-and-outs. So at times the run defense was great, but at times it wasn't. And I will admit, how many times did you guys lose the ball and didn't even realize that the quarterback had it? I mean, you were fooling the cameraman and everything as well. So trust me, the Steelers were awful. But I never would have imagined that, especially running the ball and running those fakes. I did not imagine Ryan Finley would be the guy that would be able to do that. So kudos to him for stepping up, but the Steelers never should have allowed him to be that way.
Let's say this, too. If it weren't for Minkah Fitzpatrick, the Steelers wouldn't have even had a shot at even coming back in that game.
No.
Because that great open field tackle on Finley, which, it's Ryan Finley. I mean, the one against Kyler Murray last season was a little bit more impressive because Kyler Murray's a much more elusive type player, but still, open field, mobile quarterback, he brings him down, they get the ball back. They don't obviously get the job done, but still, kudos to him. I'm going to grade the rush defense with a D. You knew it was coming, and they just couldn't stop it. They just couldn't stop it. And this wasn't, a game where Tyson Alualu's out. That's why, this wasn't a situation where, Stephon Tuitt's on the COVID list. I mean, no, they had everyone. The inside linebackers and Jeffrey Benedict, who is a contributor to the site, is in the he's in the live chat, and he said it's the inside linebackers that are just getting absolutely murdered. And when you're having to rely on Marcus Allen, who's a safety by trade, as an inside linebacker, then that tells you all you need to know. Yeah, it's bad. It's bad right now. But still, I guess for me, I kept on thinking that front is going to dominate. That front's going to dominate, and they just didn't. All right, let's go to some the secondary. Finley, like I said, he only throws 13 passes for 7 for 13 for 89 yards. They had a lot of pass defenses. The Steelers did. I'm sorry, only 4. Cam Sutton had a nice one on third down. Steven Nelson had 2. Joe Hayden had 1. Guys, the secondary was not really tested. What were your thoughts on the secondary, Brian? Go ahead.
Really didn't do much to warrant a bad grade here. I mean, I know Dave mentioned the incomplete earlier on something, but you know what? I'm not going to give them an incomplete. I'll just give them a B because when they were tested, they seemed pretty good. I know what was the final total for Finley as far as passing yards?
89 yards.
89
yeah,
yards.
Yeah. I mean, I know he went back. He only went back 13 times. I know he had one big one, but still, I didn't think they were bad.
Dave, thoughts on the secondary?
I really want to use that incomplete game because how could you? They tried not to throw on them, and when they did, some people might point out that there was times when they were beat, they could have been beat deep, but the ball wasn't thrown far enough. But to me, that's also smart playing if you're dealing with a quarterback that you don't think can get them the ball that deep. You want to play them a little bit shorter because of that. All it takes is one ball to beat you, though, and then you're in trouble. They never got that ball deep. I mean, there was the one nice pass to AJ Greene?
Yep.
That was in the first half, I think. That might have been their biggest pass play. And I mean, then 15 of those yards was the catch and run touchdown for Bernard. So it's just I can't give them that bad of a grade. I'll say B.
I was gonna echo the B. I was gonna say that they weren't tested, period. I mean, it was just a game where it was strange, and you look at the short fields that the Bengals had early in the game with the turnovers. So not gonna crucify him over that B. Steph gives us another $6.99 in form of Canuck Bucks. She's a good thing we have Old Man Rivers next week. Do the Colts see this and use Brissett on more than just third and short or goal to go? They do use Brissett on occasion, and I'm sure we'll be diagnosing that this upcoming week, especially on Know Your Enemy with Jeffrey Benedict and Michael Beck. So make sure you check out those podcasts. Thank you for the tip, though. All right, guys, let's talk like we did with the offense. Let's kind of wrap things up with the defense. What were your thoughts on the defense in general? Overall, you can focus on Keith Butler. You can focus on any specific player. Bryan, we'll start with you.
They still lost. So, I mean, if you say that they played average, that's still average to me is giving up less than 150 yards on the run. So I'm going to go ahead and give this team a C- as far as defense, because I know they played on a short field as far as on the first half. In the first half, I know it was tough, but you guys both said, you can't make excuses for defense when it was time to stop them on that drive where Finley took them 80 yards to answer back to the Steelers to really put that game out of reach. Yeah, it's inexcusable. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and give them a C-. You know what? D+.
All right, Dave, what about you? Just overall defense. You don't have to give a grade. You can just give a general statement as well.
It was, it's sad because when the Steelers needed it the most, when they needed another stop, and it's funny, I have to say another stop, that was when the defense gives up a 9-play, 80-yard touchdown drive. But if you think about it, that's really all they gave up in the game. But it was at at a time that they needed the defense to really step up, and they didn't get it. They didn't get it. So think about it. There are other scoring drives on, a 4-yard scoring drive for a field goal. Then they had a 38-yard scoring drive for a touchdown. Only 38 yards to score a touchdown. A 26-yard scoring drive for a touchdown. That's ridiculous. And then their field goal at the end, of course, was a 9-yard drive because they didn't even give up a first down, because that's when they had turned it over on downs. So the only significant drive that the Steelers defense gave up the whole game was unfortunately right when they needed them not to. So it's pretty difficult to put your defense in such a bad situation to where one second half drive and you can't win. That's what the offense did to this defense. They put them in such terrible situations in the first half that this defense gave up one drive of over 50 yards on the whole game, and that was enough for the other team to win.
I do expect, though, and maybe this expectation is a little too lofty, I do expect the defense to hold them to field goals in certain situations. Even if, you get thrust out there again and you just came back. Like, I understand that, you give up 14 points off 2 turnovers. That's bad. But sometimes you got to hope that your defense goes out there and stops them in the red zone and holds them to field goals. And next, you're only giving up 6 instead of 14 or 10 instead of 14. Those are all options as well. Black and gold goggles gives us $4.99, 11-3 in the playoffs, and a chance to win the North by beating the Browns. I should be happy. Why am I so sad? Well, I'll tell you why you're so sad, and that's because the Steelers are trending in the complete wrong direction. Mike Tomlin always says the arrow's pointing up or whatnot. I literally said after this game on Twitter, I said, did I miss Mike Tomlin say that the Steelers are going to unleash hell in December? Because that's what it feels like. This is like a December to forget. And it doesn't look like it's going to get any better anytime soon. So, man, there is just so much to unpack from this game. And before we go into our final thoughts and things like that, I want to say to everyone, make sure that you stay with Behind the Steel Curtain, not only the website, behindthesteelcurtain.com, but also our podcast side of things, because there is a lot to unpack here. And the Steelers are going to the playoffs. And we do have to get you as the fan base prepared for the postseason. So with that said, let's get to some of our final thoughts here. Bryan, we'll start with you. Final thoughts on this contest.
I have said it all year that this is a special team. They're feeling a lot less special now. You just got to keep on thinking that there's a way for them to come out of this. And right now, it feels like one of those bad dreams. In fact, it's one of those night terrors right now where you're trying to wake up and you're fighting to get out of it, and you just don't see it happening. But I've seen this team wake up before. I am holding out hope that they could do it. And look, I've got nothing else to do but to stick with this team and live and die with them. So that's what I'm going to do. It feels futile right now, but man, I've seen a whole lot worse. I lived through 1988, and I lived through that 5-11 1988 team that, yes, they've got 2 first-round draft picks, and they go out and get Tim Worley and Tom Ricketts, and that didn't help you. So what I'm saying is I just trust in this team, and it is a bad stretch right now. You can jump off if you want, and if you do, I'm not blaming you, but I'm sticking around, and I'm hoping for this huge turnaround, and we're going to see what they've got deep down. So I wish this team a Merry Christmas. I wish them to get right over the holiday. I wish them some Grinch-like reawakening where they're like, oh, yes, okay, I've got it. Eureka! I'm looking for the Eureka. So let's just hold out hope for that Eureka. We've got nothing better to do. Let's do it.
All right, Dave Schofield. Final thoughts.
I understand why there's so much frustration, and I couldn't even begin to unwrap, 10% of the live chat tonight because of everything flying by and everything so much. I just couldn't do it. I get the frustration. We feel the frustration as well. And I think I know what a big problem is. And that is every year, 31 teams in the NFL have to look at next year. Some teams that are already out of it are already thinking next year. And they're talking, did the Jets screw up by winning a game and losing the first overall pick and all these things like that? And the Steelers, they rolled through 11-0, and now they look like a team that they can't beat a bottom dweller. And because of the contract situations and the age of some of the main players, there's also not a lot of hope for next year because of the situation that everything with the Steelers was so much in this year. And now they're to a point where they're really falling apart. So it is frustrating. And I don't have confidence. I don't see any way I could pick the Steelers to win another game for the rest of this year. But but all it takes is one thing to right this ship. And I don't have the answers. I don't know that anyone has the answers. I don't know if it's possible. But you're saying there's a chance. There is a chance that can happen.
Yeah.
Honestly, I am not ready to start looking towards next year. I'm not ready to start looking towards next year. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be in the postseason, and the biggest thing you have to do is get there. I said it so many times during that streak. I don't want a big winning streak to start the season. I want it to end the season. And unfortunately, I'm getting the inverse of what I wanted. So maybe, maybe we can get on a new win streak. Maybe it'll be a 6-gamer this time. That would be nice. But that's all we can do right now is say, hey, that was terrible. I'm not going to say this is a good football team right now. I'm just going to say I hope a good football team shows up next Sunday.
It's all we can hope. Brandon Keene gives us $4.99. He said, I love this loss. Erase the delusions in the locker room that this team doesn't have problems. As a fan, I feel at home. Favored? No, but capable to win it all. I definitely like that's a different outlook. I love that. Machu gives us $12.03. He said, Kevin Greene. He said, drunk donation. Let's try something new. Donation the amount of our record after next week's game. Before the game, we're 11-3. Relax. On to Indy. Merry Christmas, BTSC fan. Bang, bang. Here we go. Love that. Positive attitude. Positive outlook. Love it. Let me get to what is it? Occam's Ox? Is that what it is? Did I say that right, Dave?
I think you got it this time.
There you go. $3.99. He said only 9 days left of 2020. It's almost over.
You know what? People keep saying, oh, we got to get out of 2020. What really makes you sure that it's going to get better? You know,
well, the joke,
I'm just talking everything. The joke is, oh, we got to get this year behind us. I'm like, what if we look back at 2020 was a good year? That way, don't get me started. That's the pessimist. I don't want to be that way.
The joke right now is, oh my gosh, when 20 turns 21, it's old enough to drink. What's going to happen there? But if you've seen the Match.com commercial with the devil meeting 2020 and they're playing the Taylor Swift song in the background and there's a dumpster fire and I mean it is, look it up, it'll actually make you smile. And they're looking forward to 2021, and I've got to do the same thing I'm doing with the Steelers. I've got to look towards 2021 and think that, hey, we've got a chance.
Yeah. You know, my final thoughts here before we call it a show is that I was listening to, and there was a quick little snippet. Eric Ebron does a podcast. It's like, I think it's called the Week 17 podcast or something. It runs once a week, and he posted on his Twitter feed maybe a 50 second, 30 to 50 second snippet of it. And he was talking about the loss. And this guy, I mean, my gosh, they were 11-2 at the time. And he seriously was talking about the struggles they were going through. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I mean, I know it's bad and you just come off back-to-back losses, but this is essentially like a boxer that's just gotten punched in the face that's never been punched in the face before. You have to respond at some point. Like, your back's against the wall. You have to come out swinging. And so if you want to use the Rocky analogy, this is like Rocky IV when the Russian is just pummeling Rocky. Well, eventually Rocky comes out and he has to start swinging. The question is, will the Steelers do that? And if so, when? We hope it's on Sunday against the Indianapolis Colts at Heinz Field. But at the same time, who knows? Who knows? We'll see. But they have to respond. They have to respond. So we'll see.
It's not that they're not capable, because we saw it for a long time. The thing is, you just don't have confidence that you're going to see that team anymore.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, yeah.
You're right. So, okay, with that said, we hope you stick with the BehindTheSteelCurtain.com website. Should be your one-stop shop for all things Steelers, as well as our audio platform. Wherever you get your podcasts, search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain. Subscribe, follow, do whatever you have to do. For the post-game podcast crew, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. We will see you all next Sunday after the Steelers game. It's a 1:00 kickoff at Heinz Field. Thank goodness for that, by the way.
Maybe that's what we need. I know that at BTSC.
Yeah. And so have a great holiday. Try to make the best of it. Enjoy some football without the Steelers playing over the holiday. Guys, for you all here and everyone at BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, Merry Christmas. We'll see you next week. Brighter days ahead. I got a feeling. Stay tuned.